Hello.
Hi.
Just thought we would do a quick video on our first 6 months on the road. So we've been on the road since June. We were home for Christmas and now we've just got back on the road this week. So we're at Liverpool at the moment getting some muffler work done on the Ram. It had a leaking manifold, so it's getting some headers and high flow cats and a tune. So we're at our Jess's cousins' place here, the vacant house that they've got while they're waiting to get tenants in here. So we're able to pull up here for a few days while we wait for the Ram with no car. So thought we would do our 6 month on the road video. So 6 months, we went from New South Wales to Queensland, Northern Territory, WA, South Australia and Victoria. So that was all in 6 months.
Big trip.
Big trip. So a total of 26,616 kilometres or 5,236 litres of diesel in the big cruiser. Yep, so total fuel cost, $12,137 in diesel alone, which breaks down to just over $500 a week on diesel. But obviously we were, I'd say moving fairly quickly, but we were also taking it in as well though. Like we had places where we pulled up for a week. We'd have places where we were 2 or 3 days was probably our main.
There wasn't many overnighters. But
very little overnighters unless we were going somewhere to get somewhere and it was just a free camp on the side of the road where there wasn't anything to keep us there. But yeah, so
the majority was just 2 to 3 nights or 3 nights was.
Yeah. So majority. 6 months was $12,137 or $505 per week just on diesel. So everyone's budget's obviously different. The slower you travel, the less fuel and the cheaper it's going to be. But when we were on a little bit of a time frame, so we basically went straight up the east coast all the way to the tip, did Cape York, came back down, went across, went up to the K town that I can never think of.
Catherine?
No. Karumba?
Karumba, yeah.
Went to Karumba. Then from Catherine we went across to WA, did Lake Argyle in Kununurra, sorry, and then went down to Halls Creek and decided to come across to Tanami and then down the centre. So, yeah, that was our trip. I'll put a little photo of our mud map on the side of the caravan so you can sort of get an idea on where we went. So the total cost, the thing that will shock everyone, was in 6 months we spent nearly $70,000. So $69,657, which breaks down to $2,900 or thereabouts a week. Now that does seem very excessive. As we said, 500 of that was fuel, which you can't do anything about. Fuel prices are dear. The more remote you go, the more you're going to pay, which we found even in some of the Aboriginal communities and stuff, fuel is terribly expensive, but you need it. And when you're towing a big van like ours with your life behind your car, you're going to use a lot of it. So we were between 22 to 25 litres per 100 towing. So what it actually worked out was about 18 to 19 litres per 100 for the whole 6 months. So that was a mixture of towing the van and not towing the van. So that's what we averaged over the 6 months. But yeah, so nearly $70,000 in 6 months, or about $1,500 a week, $1,400 a week if you take fuel out of it. So that's the given for everyone. Obviously you got groceries. Your groceries are going to be, again, more expensive.
The higher up you go and the more remote.
Cape York was terrible for groceries, but it's a remote community. They have to truck it in. They have to boat them in. And there are little communities that rely on tourism dollars as well, so you're going to pay more for it. That's just...
Our big thing was as well that we did eat out a fair bit. So we became a sucker for trying the meat pies in the little towns and the eating out at the restaurants and like pubs and stuff, the iconic sort of pubs. So yes, we sort of did do that. Maybe a bit too much, but
probably. But I don't think we were excessive with it either. It's not like we did it every day. It might have been 2 or 3 times a week that we'd get a meal somewhere.
But when there's the 5 of us eat as well, so a meal out for the 5 of us is expensive. Anyway,
and we've got kids that eat adult meals basically.
Yeah. Yes.
The youngest one eats more than the older two, so it's always going to be dear for food.
Yeah.
And obviously it depends on how much you've got to spend, how much you want to put into the trip, and what you want to get out of it. This is a once in a lifetime trip for us, so you don't want to miss out on the little things.
So when we started as well, because we started along that east coast in Queensland there, we were all in holiday mode, and I sort of wanted to do everything. So like we did the Australia Zoo, we did sea life, took the ferry and went over to Green Island, we did the snorkeling, we did the underwater boat. So like, yeah, we probably spent too much there in experiences. But in saying all that, we wouldn't change it.
No, like, I think there was plenty of times when there was things we didn't do.
Yeah, there was still stuff that we didn't do.
We could do a helicopter flight over the falls, but that's $600 for 5 of us, so we won't spend that. We'll save that money, and then we can go snorkeling there and do that for the same price. So we were still picky on what we did. We didn't just go in with no budget. I think our biggest ticket item was having a little small fixed wing plane flight over Uluru. Yeah, that would have been the dearest thing that we did.
Yeah.
Which was cool, but
well, for some of us, enjoyed it anyway.
Yeah, very windy, and a lot of us got very sick, so I didn't see the value in it. But anyway, that would have been the most expensive thing we did. Other than that, it was hiring a push bike to ride around the base of Uluru, doing snorkeling on Green Island, like things that weren't overly expensive. The biggest thing with the first part of our trip too, like we said, we went up the east coast. So going up through Queensland, through the touristy sort of spots, there's very little free camps.
Yeah.
So it's at a minimum, you're getting a hip camp for about $30 a night plus. But a lot of the time you're doing caravan parks, you're doing stuff which caravan parks are so expensive.
Yeah.
We do try and stay away from where we can. The kids still love to go to a caravan park because there's water slides and there's playrooms and there's kids. They just... Yeah, that's where a lot of kids are. They love being where the kids are so they can make friends and play.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so it broke down in our 3 months. We basically did...
6 months.
In our 6 months, we did a 3-way split, basically. It was nearly an even 3-way split between free camps, caravan parks, or hip camp, low-cost camping. So still out of a third of it, we still did free camping. So we still got to do a fair bit of that, especially up around the Cape. And once we got more remote, across the desert and the Tanami and that sort of thing. But as we said, it did really throw our expenses up the first couple of months of the trip because we were in the touristy areas and we were going up through Brisbane, Surfers Paradise, Sunshine Coast, all those sorts of areas. But if you're interested in that, we did $7,089 in accommodation. So that was 53 nights in caravan parks, 54 nights in hip camps and farm stays, and they're 8 nights in national parks, which you do pay for. They're low cost, but you still pay. And then we did 5 nights in 6 months in motels, cabins, or Airbnbs. And I think the big chunk of that was we did 3 nights on Bribie Island or Stradbroke Island.
Stradbroke Island.
In an Airbnb because we had to get repairs done to the caravan anyway.
Yeah.
So while they were doing repairs on the caravan, we went over to the island and spent 3 nights in
so 3 nights
Airbnb.
over there in an Airbnb. The motel was the night before we went over because we didn't have the caravan. Mm-hmm. And then our cabin was when we were at Alice Springs after we did the Tanami to give the caravan a really good clean after the dust. And that's all we spent there. Yeah.
So I think 5 nights in proper accommodation in 6 months.
Yeah.
Is pretty good.
Yeah.
As we said too, total cost nearly $70,000. We've been through some of that. Fuel.
I do have the full breakdown as well that we can pop up.
Nearly $7,100. You can't change either of those. It's the cost of travelling. A lot of people do say that it's cheaper to travel overseas than it is to live in your own caravan and travel Australia. You can do it cheaply if you really want to, but if we had more time, I think we'd probably look at more like farm stay stuff where you can stay there for free and look after their animals and try and get a little bit of that. But we had our lap that we wanted to do. This is our holiday. It's not life on the road indefinitely.
Yeah.
So we did what we did. The other thing is a lot of people, when we put it on Instagram, were pretty shocked with how we were spending that much money compared to others. One, we include absolutely everything. So there's nothing that we don't put. So car rego, yes, you'd have to pay that whether you travel or not, but you can't travel without it. So all our expenses include car rego,
Caravan.
insurances, maintenance, servicing, everything that we spent.
It also covered our phone bill, our Starlink, and our schooling as well, that sort of stuff, because that was on the road. So it didn't obviously cover our rates and our water that we had at home. It was only what we've done on the road.
Yeah, so we haven't included expenses for keeping a block at home or rates or anything like Jess said. So it's only stuff that we needed to pay
on the road
to travel.
Yeah.
It was a long period on the road, so obviously anything that would go wrong at home still goes wrong on the road. So we had medical issues, we had mechanical issues, we had issues with the van not being what it needed to be. So again, in that $70,000, there was over $1,000 to get a tooth pulled for Jess.
Yeah.
There was, I think, $2,000 on the caravan to get more solar panels installed.
Yeah.
And get that system updated to be more off-grid, because it wasn't what we needed it to be.
Plus, it also had its first service.
Which was another $500. There was, I dropped my phone and needed a new screen, so that was a $600 thing. That would have happened at home. We would have paid it.
We lost our GoPro.
We lost our GoPro in the rivers at Babinda doing kayaking, so that was a replacement of the GoPro.
We broke our drone.
We flew a drone into a dam wall at Lake Argyle. So, I mean, there's things went wrong, and that's all included in that. There's no point not including it because that happened.
Yeah.
Things went wrong. We would come across a Tenamai desert and had our water tanks fall out of the caravan, so we had to pay to get those
fixed.
Dodgied up to
get home. Yeah.
There was a lot of things like that we just had to suck it up and do. It
actually would be interesting to do it all without all those breakdowns and issues to see the difference, what we actually spent on all of those
for sure
issues that we had.
Yeah.
But
there was an alternator. We broke an alternator on the 200 series, so we had to replace that. There was lots of things that went wrong, really. Lots of little things. I know we look back on it and think, gee, we had a lot of things go wrong. But I think if you follow any travelling family, it's all the same story. It's just caravans aren't made, well, in my opinion, I don't think they're made to handle off-road unless you can spend that next level and get $150,000 to $200,000 caravan. You probably still have problems with them too, don't get me wrong, but you're going to have issues. You're going to have teething problems. Yeah. That's just expensive. So that's gone through that.
Do we regret the decision to travel?
No. We've got some questions here, so we put it out on socials. We've got a few questions, and then obviously we've just gone through some of the generic ones which we think we would have been interested in before we started traveling. Budget's a big one, obviously, so I think we've covered that pretty well. Anyone who wants to know more of a breakdown of it, we can do that, but at this stage, it cost us $70,000 for 6 months. Had a lot of things go wrong, a lot of mechanical issues. Obviously, that still includes your insurance for your $100,000 van, your insurance for your $100,000 car. Like, things aren't cheap. Living costs are through the roof. But when you look at it, $2,900 per week to live is expensive. But for a family of 5, how much would that have been to stay home? So you would have still had $500 a week on groceries. Your fuel bill mightn't have been as much, but you're still going to have your power bill, you're still going to have your water bill, you're still going to have your rates. You're more than likely going to have a mortgage or rent, which is $600 a week sometimes now. So if you're someone who's paying off a mortgage or paying rent every week, I don't think it would have been a lot cheaper than $2,900 a week to live with 3 kids. So questions. And again, if you've got any that we don't cover and you want to put them in the comments, we can just answer them in the comments. We're happy to do that as well. So as Jess said, do you regret the decision to travel?
Nope.
So it's definitely cost us a lot of money. It's cost us way more than we thought. To be completely honest, I had about 50 to 60 grand in my head for the 12 months. That's been well and truly blown out of the water. But again, this next 3 months is going to be the cheaper thing, and we've got everything set up now. We've gone through that your first 3 months is going to be your most expensive because you're still treating it as a holiday. You're wanting to do everything. A lot of the times you're in places that you're not going to be again, or you're not going to be for a long time. You may never be again. So like I said, if there's a world famous bakery, you want to try a pie. If there's an iconic pub like the Lion's Den, you want to have a beer, like those sorts of things. So it's going to be expensive, and you just got to work out that balance of financially how much you want to spend and how much you want to get out of the trip, how long you're doing it for. But no, we don't regret the decision to travel.
No,
we can always make money. You can't make money. You can't make more memories with your kids when they're older. So.
Yeah, that's what it was. We did it for the memories and to build our relationships and bonds and stuff with the kids. And they've changed heaps in the 6 months. We've noticed, and then coming home over Christmas, stuff with family and friends that have seen the kids that haven't seen them for 6 months. We're shocked to see how well they have come along, just how more open they are and how more social,
more confident
and social,
more
and that
willing
sort
to
of stuff.
talk to strangers, whereas before they'd be they'd say hello to someone to be polite, but they'd be very withdrawn and they'd be shy and look at their feet and only answer questions they were asked, whereas now they're very forthcoming with meeting people and asking questions and wanting to play with kids and stuff. So that sort of thing you can't do that at school. I don't think you can learn that at school. Yeah, and as Jess said, we saw a huge change in our kids ourselves when we're with them every day, but people who, like our family members and stuff that hadn't seen them for 6 months were blown away with the difference in them and just the changes in their development too in that period of time. 6 months is a long time with the kids at our age. So, so no, we definitely don't regret travelling. If we did it again, we might do things slightly different, but then again, I don't think there's much we look back on and regret doing.
No.
In 6 months. And has travelling been what you thought it would be? Like you obviously, we both watched the YouTubing families and the Trip in a Vans and the Now and Evers and whatever.
Yeah.
Do you think that travelling is what you thought it was? Like, did they portray it how it is? Did they glamorise it? Did they?
No, I think so. I think because we've always done camping and that sort of stuff. So it wasn't new to us to be in a caravan all underneath each other. We'd been living in the caravan already, so before we went away. So that was fine. We were already used to that. I think it was pretty much how
you sort of
I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. So I think that it is what I thought it would be. The only thing is I think that I had my little high ticket items, my bucket list of places that I'd seen from other YouTubers and thought that's me. I want to be there. Mataranka's me. I want to go to Bitter Springs. I want to do this. I want to do that. And while they were nice, they were what you thought they would be, or maybe in some cases they were probably filmed to be a little bit better than what they were. They were still nice, but my thing is the little small towns that weren't even on my radar and the places to visit were my favourite. And I think there was nothing better with travelling than finding a hidden gem or finding something that you weren't expecting to be as great as it was. And a lot of the time that was because of things going wrong. So, I'm a firm believer of, your GPS takes you down the one-way street and end up in a wrong spot doing a 20-minute detour, and you can take it as, oh, bloody hell, I'm going to be 20 minutes later, or you can look around and see something that you wouldn't have seen. And a lot of the time you find some really awesome stuff. Breakdowns we wouldn't have called into certain areas like Port Germain if we hadn't had a window break on the caravan. So, we would not have spent as much time in Alice Springs if we didn't have to hang around and try and get parts for the van after the Tenamai. So, things like that I think was my biggest surprise, was that the things that I remember most and enjoy the most isn't what I had on my list of the reasons why I wanted to travel. What has been the biggest surprise? Well, basically we sort of just covered that.
Yeah.
But, biggest surprise, it is expensive to do it. I don't think that's any surprise, but fuel's dear. You're going to use a lot of fuel unless, you've got a very small van. But when it's your house with 3 kids, you need a decent sized van. What would you do differently if you could basically start over? Would you do anything differently? Would you change anything?
No, not really.
Not really? I
don't think so.
I think, and this is hard to know, but I think I would go a smaller van. Not tiny, but even if it was around that 20 to 21 foot van, I think our biggest thing was it's our house for 5 people. It's the dog's got the zoomies.
What are you doing?
I think for 5 people, you think it's your house, and you always put that you look at the worst case scenario and you think, okay, well, we like to eat outside a lot, so we're not always going to be around the dinner table. Yeah. We're not always going to be in the van under each other's feet. But we look at the negative, like, okay, if you've pulled up somewhere and it's a week of constant rain, do you want to have 5 people jammed in an 18-foot caravan?
Yeah.
For 5 days? But we didn't really have that too much, to be honest.
But the other thing was, even though that was our house, like on the road, it's also our house at home. Yeah. Like, we don't have a house. So that's another reason why we did go the bigger one, because it is our full-time house until we're ready to build. Yeah. So it wasn't just thinking of on the road. I think the difference is if we would have went a 20-foot van or a 21-foot van, we would keep that van, whereas the 22.5-foot with the extended drawbar with everything else and the rack on the back and the spare tyre, it works out 9.5 metres long. And when it's behind the cruiser, it's 15 metres long. When it's behind the Ram we've got now, it's 16 metres long. So it's huge. The downside of that, the negatives to it is you are really hesitant to go to the really nice free camps with the tight tracks to get into the beach and stuff. Unless you can unhook the van and go for a scout first and then come back and go, yeah, it'll be fine, you just don't do it, because it's not worth getting the van in a sticky situation or getting stuck somewhere on the track and blocking people. A smaller van, I think we would have got into a lot more beach camp, free camp stuff, and a smaller van, it opens up your opportunities for where you can camp caravan park wise. A lot of caravan parks, not that we were turned away from any that we wanted to go to, but we might be put in, they might have X amount of 7 metre long sites, which are for your typical caravan camper trailers. They're all together in the best area of the park. The bigger vans are pushed up against the back fence, or they're over in between the cabins, or there's one or two bigger sites and you're off by yourself a little bit. So, I think as much as having a bigger van's been good, I think personally I'd probably go that little bit smaller if I did it again. And I know so many people that start with a smaller van and go the other way, where they think, got to get bigger, got to get better. Yeah. More room, more storage, more water, more everything. But I don't know whether we would have been the same if we had a smaller van. We'd do the same progression, but we're honestly looking at going the other way and going back a smaller van that we can get into tighter places, going to use less fuel, going to be more manageable around cities, that sort of thing. So that's the only thing I'd say I probably would do differently. Mm-hmm. Would you still buy the same caravan if you were starting out again? Sort of covered that as well. So honestly, no, I wouldn't. Not that I don't like the van, but I think I'd just go that little bit smaller, and that would have brought our diesel costs down a fair bit, and we would have had a slightly different trip with where we'd go, what we'd do. Yeah. Where's been your favourite place so far? Oh, I forgot about these questions.
we get asked that all the time. Whenever you introduce yourself to someone and say that you're travelling, they go, "Oh, where's your favourite place?" And it's such a hard question to answer, because it depends on how you look at it. Like, is it my favourite camp is very different to my favourite town, which is different to my favourite area. Like, it's I think my favourite town. I think my favourite part of the trip was definitely Cape York. Yeah, that was just such a diversity in itself. We got that really remote travel, which we loved. Yeah. We got the free camps next to a dam, we got a lot of that. We met so many awesome people up there. Once you get that far north, everybody's there for the same reason. Yeah. They're all into the four-wheel driving. They're all into going to the tip and the beautiful waterfalls and the camping, and there's no motels up there unless you get right up the top. So I like to look at it though, if you go to a caravan park in the city, there might be 80 people there. Out of those 80 people, there might be 5 people there that like four-wheel driving and sort of the same hobbies that you do, fishing or, that sort of thing. Whereas at Cape York, there might be 300 people there. All 300 people, there's a pretty good chance they like the same things you like. they're up there for the waterfalls and the fall driving and the remote places and the touring and stuff. So you just hit it off with everyone. Everyone is so nice up there. You do the telly track, you're going to run into that many other people that you'll just join a convoy and then you're with them for the next 3 days.
Yeah.
And it's camaraderie and helping each other out. And someone gets stuck, there's 3 other vehicles ready to help snatch you out, or there's blokes on shovels digging mud out, and just, yeah, that's what I really like about the Cape particularly. And if you are looking at doing the Cape, even solo, don't be hesitant to do it, because it's not as remote as they make out. If you go during the season times, which I think is like June to October, there's going to be people everywhere. You're never going to have an issue. If you break down, someone will help you. Someone will tow you back to a spot. Yeah, if you want to do the telly track, do the telly track. Join in with someone in front or behind you on the track. They'll make sure you get through. So the Cape, definitely for me. Other than that,
my favourite place, I quite like Darwin. I did like that city, and the kids quite enjoyed Darwin as well. It's not what I expected.
No.
So many like free things up there for families and kids to do, which was really cool.
I really like Northern Territory in general.
Yeah.
Just the whole state was so laid back. And, yeah, the things that they get away with up there you can't do in New South Wales. Like, you stand on the edge of a cliff and that's a public attraction. Whereas if that was New South Wales, it'd have to have steps, it'd have to have handrails, it'd have to have a big barricade, it'd have your warning sign. So that's very different. It's very laid back.
Yeah.
And there is a hell of a lot of stuff for families and kids for free. The Darwin Council have done amazing with, there's 3
water parks
with massive slides and splash parks, and it's all free. You don't pay anything to go there. The parks are very well maintained, free barbecue areas. Obviously, if you go to your main touristy areas like the harbour, there's the Ferris wheels and the inflatable obstacle course and the wave pool. You all pay for that because that's your touristy thing. That's what you do. But you get into the smaller areas of Darwin. Fanny Bay is beautiful, just awesome little spot. The night markets, really, really cool on the beach. I even found, like, not as family friendly, but I was up there with a group of mates as well for a little bit, and the casino's awesome. There's free pools there. There's infinity edge pools out on the edge of the beach. You can get out of the pool basically wringing wet and go and play the pokies or go. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Darwin was definitely amazing. We'll definitely get back to Darwin. Yeah. Loved that. WA, Kununurra, Lake Argyle was really cool. I don't think there's been anywhere that we haven't sort of enjoyed, but definitely Cape, Darwin as a city. We really like Yeppoon.
Yeah.
Again, it was from the Queensland government as well. You've got your free Yeppoon Lagoon.
Yes.
Which is, it sounds really bogan, but it's super cool. It's, again, just an infinity edge pool and splash park area that you can use for free. That was really cool. 1770, Agnes Waters.
Yeah.
Even sort of Cairns and stuff, like they have their free water parks and heaps of really cool stuff to do.
Yeah.
How hard is it to pack everything? So that was a question that we got on the social. You can sort of interpret that a few ways. I'm going to answer it 2 ways, I reckon. So the first way is, how hard is it to pack your life up and start travelling? And the second is, how hard is it to pack everything every day when we've got so much stuff? So to start with, it wasn't overly hard. We gave ourselves a deadline, which I think you need to do. We said we want to travel by this date.
Yeah.
And we slowly ticked off things.
Worked our way towards
it. We've set ourselves up to be able to do it. We started selling off stuff we didn't no longer want.
Yeah.
We worked out things that we didn't want to part with, so things like certain pieces of furniture or hand-me-down stuff that we really had sentimental value, stuff that you couldn't replace or we didn't want to replace. We worked out what we definitely wanted to keep. When we sold our house, we always said that, or me in particular, I wasn't going to go travelling for 12 months if it meant that we had to sell everything that we owned, our house, our furniture, shut down your business, do all that sort of stuff, just sell everything that you've worked for to have this 12 months, 2 years, whatever, of great memories, but then you come back and the bubble bursts and you've got to get back to reality and go back to work and start again with a mortgage in your late 30s, 40s, whatever. I didn't want to do that. So the only way that we decided we would travel is if we could save and fund it without having to sell a house or without having to, get a loan or do any of that sort of stuff. So we did sell our house about 12 months before we travelled, but that was not because we needed the money to travel. That was because we were at that point where we were done with that house. We wanted to look for the next thing. We wanted to move on with our life a little bit, and the market was great because of COVID and stuff. We were in a country area, and those areas just saw so many city people wanting to get into them. So we decided that we would sell. We got good money out of the house. Being a builder by trade, I did a lot of improvements to it and made it worth a lot more than we paid for it. So that helped. With that money, we then purchased a block of land with a nice big shed so we could lock all our stuff in it. We've got a good security system cameras. We can be, confident that all our stuff's safe there. We also bought a shipping container just for furniture and stuff that we wanted to jam in there that we know is going to be a little bit more protected from mice and rats and things like that. So, so it wasn't hard for us because we gave ourselves nearly, 5 years?
Nearly 5 years.
To prepare for it and work out the best way to go about it. So we have our block to go back to. We have our house deposit still in the bank. We're not breaking into that money to travel. So we basically set ourselves up. I think this might be a question further down. If it is, we'll answer it now. But how we funded to travel was we have our own business. We basically worked 7 years in that business pretty much 24/7, nearly 6 days a week, most weeks, working big hours on the computer till nearly midnight some nights, just pushing hard, saving money. Not only saving money, we then put some of that money from the business into shares. So then we have dividends coming in from the shares. When we get to a point where we need a little bit more money, we'll pick 10 grand worth of shares to sell. We sell those, put that into the bank. We live on that for the next thing. So we've kept our business going while we're away, and then that allows us to then pay ourselves a small wage every week, which covers living costs, and we can then use some of the business money to then pay for the fuel and the stuff because we're sort of working around. So that's how I'd answer that. It wasn't overly hard for us because we gave ourselves a big time frame to set everything up. The other side is how hard is it to pack everything? We're both the same person in terms of we're a little bit, I suppose anal is probably the word, with OCD, with everything being neat and tidy. You probably wouldn't tell that in some regards of some of our videos of how the van's trashed with the kids playing in it and stuff on rainy days, but everything's got its place. Everything's well thought out. We use drawers, we use tubs, we use whatever, and everything goes back in the same spot. So we have our own jobs. When we pack up of a morning, we'll, Jess will do the inside of the van, I'll do the outside of the van. We both hook the van on, we do our checks, we go. So moving on's never been a problem for us. It's not a big job that takes us half a day to do. And the other thing is I like to be a bit proactive too. If I know we're moving on the next day, I'll pack the awning up, I'll put the ground sheet away, I'll pretty much have the outside of the van packed up the night before. We're not going to need that awning anymore once the sun's going down. So we do a lot of the pack up the day before, and we have everything ready that the next morning we can get up, throw the bikes back on, throw the legs up, get the van on and get going. So, I don't think it's hard to pack everything.
No.
To take the amount of stuff we took would have been harder to try and find a spot for everything if we had the smaller van. So I think that's the trade-off with having the bigger van is everything had a little spot in a cupboard and a storage area. It's not like you see some of those travelling families where the bikes just go in the van and everything gets thrown in, and when they get somewhere you got to pull all the tubs and stuff out. Everything had a spot. How hard has the adjustment been of being with each other 24/7?
So we sort of answered that earlier in the sense that we had already been living in the van, nearly a couple of months before we actually set off on the road.
Yep.
So, and then when we sold our house, we moved into my parents' place. They weren't living there at the time. and the kids were already sharing a bedroom anyway. So then and they were already in bunks. So the adjustment of having to make bunks and stuff was easy enough to go through. So it really was pretty easy. Like the kids didn't mind it. We didn't really worry.
We do a lot of things on pretty much everything together anyway. We are a close family as far as that goes. I guess
and
we have
because
been
we'd
on
had
top
our
of each other
own
a little bit more. But
because we worked in our own business, we were already together working as well. So, we were pretty much already together. And then living in the smaller caravan and stuff was, we were already doing it before we were on the road. So it was pretty easy.
The adjustment's been too bad. I think the biggest adjustment for us, and I would say this is probably one of the main points for anyone looking at doing traveling or doing this sort of thing, is I think we put too much pressure on it to be perfect or to be everything we thought it would be in the first couple of months, and that took a few months to get used
and you do read that. You do hear people say it can take good
particularly me, I think that's probably a little bit the way I'm wired, is that I don't necessarily focus on the negatives, but I put a lot of pressure on things that holidays and things that you've saved up for a long time and you've waited and you've worked a long time. When they actually come and it's raining or it's whatever, it's easy just to go, this isn't like, it's not 100%, it's not what I thought it would be. Traveling is very much like that. So you do put a lot of pressure on it that you think it's going to be perfect, and you get to a spot and you have a week of rain and it's just not ideal. The kids are going stir crazy in the van. Homeschooling was a massive adjustment for us. I think that was the biggest single thing that caused drama or fights or whatever with our kids or us would have been the homeschooling, because it took a lot to get a system that we're happy with. If you want to know more about that, message us and Jess will tell you more about that. But it took a lot to get used to that. But I think my advice would be, don't put too much pressure on it. It's just life. Things still go wrong. And they certainly did for us. Kids still get sick. You still get sick. Jess ended up in the hospital. Jess had a tooth pulled.
I had lots of issues.
We had car problems. We had, and don't sort of...
Kids still put Lego up their nose.
Oh, yep. They'll end up in hospital with a Lego up a nose. We had a lot of things go wrong, and I think that can put a sour on it if you let it. So don't expect everything to be sunshine and rainbows, because that's not the reality of travelling. And if you think it is, then you're going to be disappointed. So treat it as life. Take the awesome things as they are, push through the negatives, and then that makes the positives
outweigh
more, mean more. So, so don't put too much – we put too much pressure on the kids that, we've saved so much for this for 5 years. We've sacrificed so much for us to do this, and the kids go, I don't want to go out. I want to stay in the van all day. I don't want to go to the waterfall. I don't. And you sort of go, this is a once-in-a-lifetime trip, which everyone calls it that, a once-in-a-lifetime trip, and you want it to be perfect. So just take every day as it comes. I think we probably, and what a lot of our comments we get on our videos are, we don't let things get us down too much. We do push through. We do find the best of a bad situation, and that's what it is. One of our friends made a comment the other day that we should change our channel name to Third Time Lucky, because we'll make a plan, that'll turn sour. We'll go, okay, we'll adjust the plan and do this. That'll turn sour. By the third time, we end up doing it. So, just roll with the punches, essentially. Quick one, how heavy is the car and van? Because everybody gets the weight questions. I'm not going to go into that massively because we have just upgraded the car. So, for these 6 months, we were using the Land Cruiser 200 series. It did have a GVM upgrade from 3350 to 4050. So, the car could be super heavy. That was never the issue. The problem with that is the heavier you make the car, it didn't change the GCM, the particular GVM upgrade I had. So that still meant that the more the car weighed, the less the van could weigh. So we had to go on a massive diet before we left, essentially. We had an awesome setup in the car. It had the swing away tyre carriers and everything at its spot, and the drawers and the drop slides and the awnings and all the bells and whistles. And we actually rated a hell of a lot of that because we weighed the car pretty much 3 days before we were set to leave, which was dumb. And we were quite a bit over. We were about 300 or 400 kilos over. So we ended up getting 300 kilos off that car by pulling the drawers out, going back to plastic tubs, taking the swing away tyre carrier and the jerry can holder off, putting the spare tyre back underneath. So basically, when we left, the van was very close to 3.5 tonne, so it was about 3.3 when it was loaded, and the car was about 35, 3.5 tonne sort of thing. So that it was a little bit heavier than that with everything else on it, but that kept us right on our GCM of 6850. Or at times, I'm not going to bullshit about it, we would have been slightly over if we were full of everything.
Full of water, full of food, full of fuel.
Full of water in the tanks of the van. We have a 90-litre bladder in the car. If that was full, if the fuel was full, it's got a 140-litre tank, 138-litre tank on that cruiser. If that was full, that's another 140 kilos. So if we were full of absolutely everything and had groceries and 2 cartons of beer and 2 cartons of Coke because we were going fully remote, we would have been a touch over for sure. But we didn't run that way. So, we didn't have the bladder on the car full and the van full. There was no need.
Yeah.
We didn't have, everything full. So, the only time I think we would have been probably over would have been when we decided we were going to do the Tanami Desert. 1,200 Ks of absolute nothingness. We took extra fuel. We took everything. All the water was completely full. We would have 100% been over, and we knew that, but that was for that one little snippet. And as we said, we did everything in our power to be as light as possible. So, so as a rule, we would have been about 6850, close to 7 tonne at times. But we were right on the edge of our limit, which is, again, why we decided to go with the Ram. Love the cruiser. Did everything we needed it to do, but the Ram just, with a GVM upgrade, again, nothing comes out of the box ready to tow that sort of weight, unless you want to spend big money on a 2,500 or a 3,500, something like that. So the 1,500 Ram that we bought, we still needed to spend sort of $5,000 on suspension and get a GVM and rear axle re-rate, but better suited car to do what we want to do. So that was the weights. Just a little thing we're going to do quickly. I want to do the 5 most sort of needed items, or the 5 things that you couldn't live without travelling. So my 5 and Jess's 5, this is going to be different for everyone, but these are our things that will give you an idea. Maybe there's some things on there that you hadn't thought of. Or maybe you've got a different 5. So for me, and this is obviously tried and tested over the last 6 months of what we've used all the time, what we can't do without. So my 5, one would be a battery drill with a socket adapter. So your battery drill means that you can put your legs of the caravan up and down quicker. It's also the same socket to use to screw in pegs, because, screwing pegs is so much easier. You can get a variety of sizes. They'll go bite into anything, whether it's loose sand, whether it's hard packed dirt, and you're not losing and bending pegs using one peg trying to pull the other one out. They screw in, they screw out, super easy. And it gave me a little bit more peace of mind as well that I had a really good peg on the awning, so it wasn't going to blow over. So battery drill, screw in pegs. The blackjack jockey wheel, or some sort of easier jockey wheel for me, because we're about about 300 kilos of bore weight. It is super hard on jockey wheels. We had our first jockey wheel broke at the Cape, so we were only like a month or 2 into the trip, and our jockey wheel broke. We're on the side of the road, no way to get the car or the van on and off the car, because we had to, every time we would get the van off, we'd have to use to stabilise the legs on the van a little bit at a time, go and re-level the jockey wheel up again. So we looked into a lot of different ones. The 2 we were tossing up between was the Boss 360 and the Blackjack. The Boss 360 is a drill drive, where you put your drill or your socket in there and you use it as a mechanical one. I had nearly pulled the trigger on one of those, and then I spoke to a lot of guys that had them, and they had a lot of issues with them, where they were always stripping a little cog or a worm gear in there and having to get a new piece sent out. So I decided to go away from that. Spoke to a lot of people that had the Blackjack electric jockey wheel, and they loved them, had no dramas. They're supposed to be rated at 1.8 tonne, which they're never going to need to lift that. So we went with the Blackjack jockey wheel. Having said that, we'd had that jockey wheel for a month and it broke. Just our luck. We had it for a month, and we were trying to put the van on in Kununurra in WA, and it was coming down. It wasn't even lifting up. It was coming down, and it stripped a weld apparently. So they have 2 fail safes in them. One is a thermal cutout, so if they get over a certain amperage because they're working too hard, it'll throw a thermal cutout. Once it cools down, it comes back in. And the other one is a shear pin. So it should have done one of those two things if it was overloaded, but it didn't. So therefore, the company knew that we hadn't used it in a way it wasn't supposed to be used. We hadn't overloaded it. And he said that he'd heard of it 3 other times, and it was a nut that gets spot welded on, and they were working on a fix. So anyway, they sent us out a new one. The new one's been great. So, but if I was not using the van 24/7, I wouldn't have bothered spending $500 on a jockey wheel. But the fact that we put it on and off the car 2 or 3 times a week for 6 months, definitely worthwhile. And it also meant that it was too hard for Jess or the kids to wind the jockey wheel up and down. So I'd back the car in, get out, wind the jockey wheel up, get it in, get out, wind it down. Whereas now the kids or Jess can hit the button, lift it up as the car's coming back, get in a spot, press the button and lower it down, and it's all just makes hitching and unhitching so much easier for us, honestly. Starlink internet, I think this might be one of Jess's as well. 1, because we do homeschooling and we needed it. 2, not only for the internet, and I know people go, you go travelling in the remote areas to not have internet. I get that, but it's not only the internet, it also means that with these mobile phones now, if you have Wi-Fi, you can make a normal phone call. You can be in the middle of nowhere and check in on your dad or order parts or organise a tow truck or anything like that. So, yeah, there's obviously other ways you can sort of do it with sat phones and things, but they're very expensive. The Starlink, my biggest feature with that, I think, was just, having dad at home by himself. I just wanted to know that if you're in the Cape for 3 or 4 weeks and you get back and you've found out that nobody's been able to contact you and your dad's passed away, and, chances are if you're 3 weeks remote, you could have even missed a funeral. You'd never forgive yourself. So I think just being able to have that little contact with the outside world, and it's up to you when you turn it on. You don't have to turn it on every day. You don't have to be dependent on technology, as people would say. Every couple of days, chuck it on for half an hour, check your missed calls, get back to people, touch base with family, let them know where you are and how things are going. So for me, Starlink. A generator, that's a hit and miss for a lot of people. So we didn't use it a lot, but I didn't use it much at all, to be honest. No. But I still think it's something I wouldn't go without, just because there were some times when we were in the middle of nowhere and it was 40 degrees and we could turn that generator on and run the air conditioner. That was worth it for that. And the other side of it is, at the start of our trip, we had so many issues learning our van setup and batteries, and we ran out of power probably 3 times a week trying to work out what we could and couldn't run. And you could throw that generator on, charge your batteries back up and that sort of thing. So definitely a generator. We had the alternator go on the car. You could use a generator to charge that battery up enough to drive in and get parts. It's just, generator. So they're my 5, my main 5. What are your 5?
So my 5 were the kids' hooded towels that I got, which I've got one here. So they're, I think it's Native brand, but they're sand-proof, what do you call it, resistant? I don't know. Sand doesn't stick to it, and they're quick dry.
Sandophobic.
Yeah, and they're quick dry, but they were great for beaches and stuff, but they were also great when we were at caravan parks. Instead of having to cart over all the kids' pajamas and whatnot and get them wet on the bathroom floor if we use their amenities, they could get out of the shower, they can chuck on some undies and then pop these on and then come back to the caravan and get their pajamas on then. So they were definitely a good hit, and loved them. So that was my number 1. Number 2, I had so I got some little containers to put in the car. So they're for snacks and that. So instead of buying all your little packets of chips and your little packets, I'd buy your big packet. So you'd buy your packet of chicken crimpy sort of thing, your box of chicken crimpies, and then I had my 3 little containers and I divided them up, and that was their snack for in the car. So instead of buying all the smaller ones, it was less money, cost less that way to buy them in bulk. And also it eliminated crumbs and stuff in the car for Dan. So
and it's something that people don't do anymore. I think you think back.
It's so much easier just to grab a little packet, go and get something out of the cupboard, and all 3 of them grab one thing out of the cupboard. But if you can just buy something. The big
saying is convenience costs.
Yeah.
So, so I think, you think back on it, who as a kid didn't go on a family road trip and have your parents with the travel cups in the car, and if you were lucky, they'd run in and get a 2-litre bottle of some sort of soft drink, and you'd all get 3/4 of a cup sort of thing, rather than everybody going in and getting their $6 Gatorade or Coke or whatever they want. So it's nearly like a different era now, but I think that's, and like we said, we bought out takeaway and stuff, but we didn't just buy anything. We were also, like, if there was a specials board, you get what's on the specials board. The kids eat off the kids menu.
Yeah.
The kids will share a meal if it's a big meal.
Like when the kids are wanting their ice cream and stuff, like the 5 of us to go and get an ice cream from like the ice cream shop costs us like $50, $60 for that, which is ridiculous. So like, we did the odd ones of those ones just to have that experience. When we're at Stradbroke, we got to do a proper ice cream on the beach. But then there was the times that we just decided to go to your Coles and you go and buy your pack of ice creams that are on special, your big box, and split it up that way. So it's cheaper.
$6 or something.
Yeah. So anyway, so the containers for the snacks in the car, awesome idea, I think. Starlink was another one that I had, more so for schooling, just because we needed that to be able to get back to base with the school and stuff like that, and to send off their work and have our lessons online when we were doing the online lessons. So that was really handy. The other one I had, I'm a sucker for, your containers and storage and stuff like that, and I like everything to have their own place. But I had in particular the Kmart storage containers in the top cupboards above the sink, because I'm a little shorty and I can't actually see what's in those cupboards, to the point that Dan said a couple of weeks ago when we were there, do you still need this green bread that's in here? Because it was shoved right at the back and I couldn't see it. So he can see in those cupboards, I can't. So I have my Kmart storage container and I take it out, put it down, get what I want, and then I can put the container back in. So I've got them in all the above cupboards so that I can get to and see what's in them. And the other one I had was the Fusion lock, locks and hooks sort of thing that you buy from Bunnings that everyone talks about. We've never had an issue with any of them falling off the suction or anything falling off. We've got the hat hooks, we've got the soap holders, we've got the toothbrush holders,
wire container
we've got
things.
We've got them all.
You can't tell me anyone's done rougher roads than we've done.
Yeah, so and none of them.
We've had literally had our van fall to pieces.
And what happened with it is what did happen was that the soap did bounce out and spill out, but the hook, like the Fusion section, is still stuck to the wall. So that would be my other one, was the Fusion lock. You can just put them anywhere in your van, and I've used them heaps.
Yeah.
So they'd be was that 5?
That's your 5.
Yeah.
How do you fund your trip? As I said, I thought this was a question coming up, so we've been through that a little bit. How do you find camp spots? So we went through that. We did about a third.
Yeah. So that's basically sort of my more side of it. I did a lot of the booking of the camps and researching. So while Dan does the driving, I'm on Facebook and I'm on Wiki Camps and Hip Camps and lots of stuff, looking them up, and then go back to my Google Maps and see the directions and where we are and that sort of stuff. So Facebook was big help. I'd put the town in the search engine, and then I'd be able to find things that way. So there's the travelling caravanning with kids sort of thing. Then there's also a free free Camp Australia page sort of thing that I'm on, and I've just joined another one now with dogs, because we're finding that there'll be areas that we're not going to be able to go with dogs. So basically that sort of stuff. And then did wiki camps, hip camps, and just what people had mentioned or what I've seen along the way and
speaking
where we're
to
going.
People as well, like you can't beat
speaking to people, and
you can't beat speaking to people and sort of obviously
hearing their experiences. And
you talk to someone and go, where have you come from? Where are you going? Oh, we just come from there. You got to stay here. These people are lovely. You got to stay with them, whatever. But I think the other thing too is you got to make your own assumptions of things.
Yeah.
So we found massively that sort of certain things, pubs and areas or accommodation, you talk to someone and they'd say it's the best place they've ever stayed and it's amazing and you need to stay there. And then you'd speak to another couple the next day who'd just come from there and it was their worst experience they've ever had, sort of thing. So everybody has a different expectation of things, and it depends on what you're into, on whether you're going to get what you want out of it too, I guess. So like the Lion's Den was an example. We had a couple tell us that it was very rowdy, and then, it was noisy and the kids couldn't sleep and they were worried for their safety and all this sort of stuff. And then we had other people that said it was absolutely amazing and that you wouldn't miss it. So obviously if you're a 60-year-old retired couple, you want peace and quiet. You want to, get a good night's sleep. Whereas if you're a young couple, you don't mind that there's festivities and music until 2:00 in the morning and that sort of thing. So obviously you're going to get out of it what you want, sort of thing. So so on that same topic, how far ahead do we book when we're planning our trip?
So when we first started out, I was like, I need to book, I need to plan, need to know where we're going, what's the stuff. So we did that for a little bit to start with. But then I got to the point where I was like, but if we liked a place and I've already booked ahead, I didn't really want to have to ring and cancel or lose our, that's the thing. So I've now stopped to we just roll with it. Whether that's going to backfire, now we're heading south and apparently I think is going to be
times, but
a lot busier and that sort of stuff. But no, I really don't book too far ahead.
That's been an adjustment for us, as you said. We are normally people that want to plan everything to the T. But we found pretty early on that if you book too far ahead, we'd be at spots where
you wanted to stay.
You had 2 days there to do everything you needed to do, and there was so much more there than you thought.
Yeah.
Or you had 2 days to do what you wanted to do, and it rained for those 2 days, torrential rain, and then we just went, okay, we'll just stick around another 2 days and push out.
Which is what we did at Rockhampton.
Yeah.
We only had 3 days booked there, I think, and those 3 days it just poured. That was one of our lots of rain. We didn't have much, but that was our big pause. And I hadn't had anything booked after that. And I said to Dan, why don't we just stay another 2 days? It's meant to clear up now. So we stayed the extra 2 days, and so glad we did, because Rockhampton had heaps to offer. My only thing
would be, if you want to live it that way and not book too far ahead, just be wary of where you're going to be during school holidays.
Yeah.
Or busy periods. And maybe book that. So we still did a bit of that. So you can still have a certain date,
which could be in like 3 weeks' time, and you've got 3 weeks to get there.
You've got accommodation 1,000 k's away in 3 weeks. So what you do in those 3 weeks, up to you. You can stick around here a bit longer, but then the next spot you can make up a day by leaving earlier. But as long as you have your certain spots to be by school holidays, the rest is just roll with it.
Yeah.
The biggest challenge on the road, I think we've been through that. That was sort of homeschooling for us.
Homeschooling was our biggest challenge. We had a lot of up and down with it and trying to work out the way to do it. And it was hard for the kids to get their head around it. I mean, normally when you're in the caravan, you're in holiday mode and you're just going on a holiday and they don't have to do schoolwork. But they needed to understand that this wasn't holiday, this was life. We've taken them from school and that sort of stuff. So we really had to it took them a bit, and us, to adjust as well, because we're not just parents now, we're also school teachers. So we had to sort of learn that and get our head around all that. But we're a common sense sort of people. Like we don't want them to not do schooling by any means. We don't want them to fall behind because of these 12 months, but we also realise the benefit in travelling and what they're going to learn while they're on the road. Yeah.
And we're the type of people that we do go to museums, we do go to
we follow their interests as well, like, and what they want to learn and want to do. So I mean, Mackenzie got into her plants and her little business that way, so we followed her that way, and she drew up a plan of how she'd want to do her shop and what she made, how much money she made and what she spent and that sort of stuff. So we did it different ways. We followed them. They both got into wanting to do cooking and stuff because they watched me cook dinner. Normally they don't see me cook dinner, and I just go cook dinner because I'm in the kitchen and they're in another part of the house. But when we're all on top of each other, they say us do everything. And so then they became really interested in wanting to do cooking. So then they made desserts every night, or they helped with dinner and learn to cut up and actually know how to use a knife properly and that sort of stuff, which it was basic day-to-day stuff that they're going to need to know, but I just never really thought, to be honest, about teaching it to them earlier until now. And then, we just followed their interests. Like when we were in Darwin, we went to the museum and they learned about Cyclone Tracy and they loved it. They're learning about it all. When we came back, that was as far as Mackenzie wanted to go with it, but Riley was still really interested. So then him and I jumped onto YouTube and then watched, what are they called? Like other like people that had lived through it and how they lived through it and that sort of stuff, and had their told their story, and that was really interesting. Like Riley found that quite interesting. So
and I think it's easy. It's easy for kids to grow up in a certain area and be a little like they've got the blinkers on a little bit and only just see that culture and that way of life, whereas there's so much more around Australia to how people live and different economies and so that was really cool. And how things have changed over the years was massive for our kids, like being able to go back and show them even just the household stuff back in the early 1900s of going and getting water and heating it over a copper tub, and like you don't just flick a tap and you've got hot water. Like
or even when we were at was it Bell's Cafe?
Yeah.
And out the back they could see all the different types of scales that they'd used over the years, and milkshake makers and stuff like how all those sort of things
and
were
recipe
different.
books and things like not everything's on your phone and your iPad like it is now.
And so they thought that was really cool as well.
Yeah, so homeschooling was the biggest challenge on the road, but we have got to a point now where we're pretty happy.
Yeah.
So, what would you tell anyone who's watching this because they're about to start travelling?
Do it.
Pretty much.
Just don't stress too much about it.
Never met anyone who's done it and went, "Oh, I wish I wouldn't have done that."
I mean, it may not be for everyone. Like, I'll be honest, I have read some that have started and then went, "No, this is not for us," and they have turned around. I mean, they enjoyed the 3 months, but they just went, "Oh, I can't go any longer," or whatever, and they turned around and went back. So
I think I mean, we're a little bit like that. Like, we'd planned on doing 12 months. That was our time frame. And we honestly, at the start, we thought maybe we might keep going.
We thought we'd be an indefinite. We thought we could be, but
that's why we didn't build a house. We didn't put any firm foundations in anywhere, because we just wouldn't have been surprised if we thought this is us, this is our lifestyle, this is what we want to do. But it wasn't the case. We absolutely love travelling and seeing new places and experiencing stuff with the kids. And I love having this channel where it's just the kids can always come back to it. They can come back in 20 years' time with their kids and go, "Oh, look what I did with Nan and Pop. You know, we went here, we did this." And it's always there. So that's what I really like about this whole platform of YouTube and stuff. But our biggest thing is we went for 6 months and we decided we wanted to go home for Christmas, to be with our family for Christmas and let the kids have Christmas with their cousins like they always have. And we really settled in at home.
Yeah, we loved it, being back home.
It really made us appreciate what we have at home and our support network that we have. So, at home, like nearly all my family live within 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Pretty much. So we have so many options there of, "Oh, no, Jess needs to go and get a tooth pulled. Let's drop the kids to an uncle or an aunt," or that sort of thing, or "We need to go and do this and Jess is busy, could you have the kids, or can you watch the dog while we go do this?" Whereas when you're on the road, that was our biggest adjustment, is we didn't have any of that. We were fortunate that when you got sick and ended up in hospital, we were travelling with
my brother
and sister-in-law and family, so they were great. They took the kids for us. But if we didn't have that at that particular time,
I would have had to probably go ambulance and you'd have to stay with the kids. Or
you'd be in hospital by yourself because you weren't allowed to have that many people in there, and the COVID rules and that sort of thing. So, I think it's not that I would say travelling still for us, but we're not an indefinite travelling family.
And we're not long time either.
Our biggest excitement now is to do this next 3 months. So, as I said, we were doing 12. We've done 6. We're going to do another 3. And then we're back home for the kids to start term 2 in school.
Yeah.
And then from then we will be planning a trip a year as a big trip. Where we go away for a month or a term or something and do that. And then we come back and we go back to work and we save our money to do it again next year. We'll also do your little long weekenders and long weekenders, and we still work for ourselves if we're fortunate enough to do that and this is still going well. Then we'll have our flexibility where we can have a Friday off and go for a 3-day weekend. But it gives us that opportunity that we miss not camping with friends. We miss not camping with family. We sort of going out to the dam for the day and yeah, and that's what we did, a lot more of that when we were back home, and it really cemented that
that's what we want to do.
we really love that as well.
We liked the best of both worlds,
We do.
really. So that's what we're going to try and
human nature to want what you don't have, but
yeah.
we also need to appreciate what we do have, and we're very fortunate to be doing this. So, but yeah, I think that's pretty much it. We've gone through our questions. We've probably rambled on for way too long, but if you've made it this far in the video, well done. Thank you. Give us a comment and let us know you did.
Yeah.
So thanks for watching anyway. And if you're new to the channel and you sort of got the little snippets of information through there of all the things that we had go wrong and whatever.
It's all documented.
Jump back and have a look. We'd definitely tell it as it is. There's no sugarcoating anything.
There was no sugarcoating. We tell it how it is.
If things go completely pear-shaped, that's how it comes across.